talks about, let's see here, devotion, a religious fervor, an act of prayer or supplication, a religious exercise or practice other than the regular corporate worship of a congregation, one directed in Roman Catholic piety to a particular object of faith, an act of devotee or quality of being devoted, art, love, or affection. It's interesting because it talks about fidelity as a synonym for devotion, being faithful. The way this took me, of course, I want to just kind of look at these concepts of art. One is characterized by a warmth of feeling, typically expressed in eager, zealous support or activity. So it talks about, in one sense, what fires you up? What do you get fired up about? What kind of increase a certain level of energy that you're excited about? Besides getting paid or payday or getting off from work on Friday. It really excites you in terms of your inner self, your inner work. So it talks about fiery and hot, shining and glowing. What impassions you, fills you full of energy. So then it was, in parentheses, it talked about sun, S-U-N, which is the key word we're going to get into. So prayer, related to asking. So imploring, to make a request in a humble manner, to address God or a God with adoration, confession, supplication, or thanksgiving, to address God or a God in word or thought, an earnest request or wish. Again, we define God or the God concept as a hierarchy of forces, not as some personality sitting up in the sky. So then we also define it as the elements of fire, air, earth, and water, which we will get into a little bit in terms of how we made it of God, in terms of we have within our own selves the elements of fire, air, earth, and water, and which represents what? I'll put it and see. So fire, earth, and water represents what?
Cardinal elements?
In one sense, but what is actually translated in terms of how it operates in the universe? Well, it operates in many ways, but fire, earth, and water. Let's go back to your sevenfold constitutions of humans to give you a clue. Yeah, that's related. Fire, air, earth, and water. 4 elements. God, He, Vadi, the Tetragrammaton, Jehovah, Yahweh. Any notes, huh? Okay. So, earth, that's physical.
You asked.
Water, that's emotions. Emotional.
Air is mental.
Air is mental, intellectual. Fire, intuitional, or spiritual. Right. So you say then you address or supplicate in a humble manner to God. God is a hierarchy of forces. So God is energy. So then when you are actually trying to get in tune with that energy, that's why meditation is one of the universal processes to get in tune with the divine. Because you have to submit to meditate. You can't meditate aggressively. You have to submit. And through submission, what you do then is allow that which is in you to come out and express itself. Because it's always there. We're so busy connected to the external world, we never listen to the subtle that's inside of us all the time. You're being called 24/7. Your orders are always there. You just don't listen to them. So then prayer is actually one getting in tune with a certain level of consciousness. So it says purpose. Something set up as an object or end to be attained. Intention. resolution, determination. So again, what is your purpose? What is the object of your life? What is the object of the thing that you do? When you make a decision, what is it based on? What's your frame of reference? Are you conscious of your frame of reference, or are you an automaton, like someone that's just been conditioned by the way you've been raised, been conditioned by the media, exclusive, etc., to where now you work and operate automatically, although you think you're thinking. So intention, intent, purpose, design, aim, end, object, objective. So what is your purpose? Are you operating from some kind of a plan? What are you aiming at in your life? Do you have a goal, and what is it related to? What is the end product? We're having a conversation today in terms of, there's a lot of chaos going on in terms of people in society today. And a number of the sessions we've been talking about the issue of how individuals are trying to manipulate or refigure the system as it is now, and then become frustrated because it doesn't work. And the issue is not so much trying to reconfigure what already is here. The issue is creating something new. But to create something new, you have to have a design or a vision of what that new thing is to create. What the major problem is people do not have a vision of what is the alternative or the new way. So they're constantly engaging in terms of just trying to shift around what is already here, and it's not going to work. But because people are so engaged in the now, they can't separate themselves out from that and take time to design something new that becomes the new aim, the new object, the new intention. Yes, sir.
What is the new way?
What is it? But basically the new way is what type of society or community, or how will the community need to be structured to where it actually feeds the higher components of the human. So you say physically, what are the true physical and organic needs of a human being in terms of good food, clean water, fresh air? So then how would you have to construct society where those things were available? But now if people's aims are for luxury items, and luxury items generate 60% of the toxic waste in the world, then you have to have a world that's not based upon these same type of luxury items. So the whole standard of living has to move from what we call a high standard of living to quality of life. But people know, I think we may talk about this a little bit in terms of how what people think as being quality now is really based upon material. To me, sometimes it's to get up and walk outside and it's clear sky and bright sun and it's a nice day. That's great. But some people don't even recognize that because they're so focused in on other material things. If I could just go to my tap and just some fresh water, and suppose I got to go buy bottled water, or could just walk to the store and it has the things that I want to have there. As opposed to I get my car and drive halfway across the city to get what you need. If I could turn my television on and access any kind of information and data, I could, this stuff we're talking about today, turn to the Gnostic channel, and get it. So we have to totally redesign. And that's just the physical level. Then you got the emotional level. You like to go around and talk to people and they smile at you and not think something wrong with you. Where people want to carry on a good conversation. I like to be able to walk to work as opposed to got to get on the freeway. I wish the freeway was gone. It should be structured where everybody within every community, you should be able to work, play, have entertainment right there within your own local area. Quality stuff. You're not the limit. You can still travel and go wherever you want. That still be there. But most people want very fundamental and basic things. We're talking about totally redesigning how society even with the values, and we're talking about cities being redesigned. I think what they say, the automobile takes up 60% of the land mass. 60% of the land mass is taken by the automobile. That means freeways, parking lots, gas stations, automobile, tire manufacturers, junkyards, etc., etc., etc. 60%. And that was a man-made decision because back when they had the rail system, the trolley cars, the automobile makers, they undermined legislation to cut back on the rapid transit system so people become dependent upon automobiles and they make money. And even the whole fossil fuel carbon combustion engine is obsolete. But they don't even let designs out that could totally alter the way travel is because of the effect it would have on the profit margin for those who are the financial. But the automobile manufacturers, your major manufacturing industries, so it's all about material. So if you're talking about changing to a quality of life, you're talking about a major global revolution. So those are just some of the ideas. The whole thing is submission. If you just submit to the laws for health and happiness, it guides design. You follow what I'm saying? Like we say, sunlight. Sunlight, if you look at the benefits of sunlight on the human organism, each human organism, except for those from the north and the snow, gain benefit from being in the sunlight. The ultraviolet rays going into your, like wearing sunglasses, it filters the ultraviolet rays going into your eyes that affects your pineal gland, production of melanin, which is the chemical material that opens up the connection between your physical and your spiritual realities. You get sunglasses cool. But because we don't understand the inner science of things, then of course, that's what we do. Now for Europeans it's different because they are melanin deficient, they have to protect themselves. When in actuality, our system were designed to absorb sunlight. That means that if we start shutting ourselves off from sunlight, we have negative effects on our biology. But then if you look at how our lifestyle is designed, we get up and live in houses with very little direct contact with sunlight. We wear synthetic clothes, which then also filters out sunlight, and also it filters out in the air. You have what they call negative ions in the air, which are the beneficial aspects of air. They've been reported. And negative ions are produced where you have high concentrations of water around oceans, lakes, streams after it rains. After it rains, or you go around water, it feels very refreshing or invigorating. But what's happening, you're actually breathing in these negative ions. The air, the oxygen itself, the oxygen molecule, actually has an added electron that adds another energetic property. But when you're around like air conditioning systems and synthetic carpets and synthetic clothes and synthetic furniture and all these kinds of things, it strips the air of that extra electron and creates a positive ion. Positive ion then creates an environment that produces headaches, anxiety, allergies, it lowers the body's resistance to disease. So what I'm saying is, if you submit to those laws that create health, it then directs how design should be. Which means then, we get out the house, get in the car, we drive in the car, we go to an office, we go in the office, we get back in the car, we get back in the car, we go home. When the sun is rising, you get back home when the sun is setting. So how much time do you actually spend directly in the sunlight? And so then you look at the stuff in the food, stuff in the water. You wonder why people got cancer and all this stuff. That's why. Cancer is where the body actually becomes, it starts feeding on itself because you start creating, abnormality. The cancer cells become malignant. Right. Which is actually toxic. So that's what I mean. So if you understand the laws that create a healthy state of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual existence, then the society has been designed to match those laws. Where now society is designed to match the laws of profit. And there's only what? 10% of the world population controls 60% of the world's wealth.
And when you figure who controls the wealth of that 10%,
right. Probably what, ain't but 0.01%.
They got another statistic gonna tell me that they said less than 1% owns 40% of the nation's economy. That's right. Less than 1%.
So that's what's driving everything. If we're talking about aim, object, intention, that's the real aim, intent. All the stuff that's going on in society is in the context of that 1%.
So were you saying earlier that if you submit to what is in you, it's always going to design something that's best for you?
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, you get back to spiritual advertising.
Right. Oh, you want to move forward with that?
You talk about automobile listening cars. They figure out how many people listen to gasoline.
I don't know. Trying to do what people can tell how much food is still left. Yeah, they got calculation on it, but there's probably some untapped oil reserves they're trying to get. They put on all around and then creates geological shifts and other things like that. So that's another question. Yeah, the issue is that right now the Earth has actually become is actually saturated now. It's like you have a bucket full of water. We're already running over in the bucket. So then we've already run over. Now it's spilling over on the floor. Start flooding the floor. If you don't stop, then it's going to flood the whole house, and then the house will fall in. So what it says is when you do when it happens, you cut it off first. Then you mop up what's the mess. But then I cut it off. So that's happening now, right now. We've already saturated it. So, goal means what one's purpose, what one proposes to accomplish or attain. Intention, what one has in mind to do or bring about. What one has in mind, is it your lower mind or your higher mind that is driving your intentions? Intent suggests clever formulations or greater deliberations. Purpose, a settled determination. What have you settled on? Design, a carefully calculated plan. Do we have a design for the future? Do we have a carefully calculated plan for the future? No. If you ask 10 people, what is our design for the future, you're going to get 10 different answers. So there's no way you're going to be able to develop it. It's like we're going to build this building, and we got 10 of us working on it, and everybody got their own idea what it's going to be. It's going to try to be real crazy. And that's why things are real crazy. So until some kind of way we have to develop a mechanism to come together, to come to some consensus on how do we want to exist. Health systems, educational systems, political systems, economic systems, art and cultural systems, technological systems, spiritual reality. And the reason why the other cultures beat us is the Jews, or they have agreement on some of those combinations. You say aim, directed toward attaining or accomplishing, and goal, attained only by prolonged effort and hardship. Goal, attained only by prolonged effort and hardship. So you're talking about protracted struggle. How long have the groups and organizations stay together moving towards some carefully determined design? Okay. So now that's the exoteric. That's the outer. In the exoteric or the outer, there's key words that lead us to a esoteric. Usually, unless you've been initiated into the esoteric, you won't be able to reveal it. So where we're going to go today is to the Golden Key. And in metaphysical esoteric studies, especially Black Gnostic Studies, which is my main school, my Aquarian Spiritual Center, the Golden Key is astrology. Astrology represents the principle. Those things born in time take on the qualities of those times. So that means that when you were born at a particular time and space, and so at the time you took your first breath and became an independent operating entity or living entity, before you took that first breath, you still was functioning off your mother. She gave you were actually an extension of her, because she provided you with the substance upon which you exist, the physical substance, your nourishment, your oxygen, and your blood. Once you took that first breath, there's a valve that shuts down your connection to the umbilical cord, and your own lung and your own heart then circulates. And then you become an independent operating entity. And at that moment, then you take that first breath and become independent. That is like your time. And so the quality that exists at that moment is then imprinted in you. You carry that quality with you throughout your life. It's a potentiality. Now what you do with it is based upon your level of consciousness. Yeah.
I'm confused. Could you clarify at that moment of breath, what time? The year, the moment
of breath.
The hospital in which she's, I don't understand.
The moment of breath. When you are born, when that baby is born, it takes its first breath.
I understand that.
At the time that it breathes through its own nose and its lungs inflate, the umbilical cord shuts down between the mother and the baby. And then at that moment, you become independent.
Oh, I got that.
Okay.
I thought it was something to do with the zodiac thing.
No, it is. Because at that moment, you become independent. That's your moment of birth. Right. And so then that moment represents a quality in the universe. It's a note, it's a vibration, it's an energy, it's a rhythm, it's a song, it's a poem, all those things.
You mean I can't call on the 900 number and dial up the zodiac person to get me the moment at a time?
No, they can't get it from, you can't get it from them, you have to give it to them.
Why are they making big money off of it?
Because people are ignorant. Because people are ignorant.
Zodiac, it just does something to me, like I'm through with Dionne Warwick forever.
Oh.
But I am. She introduced all this madness. How can you, I see this, how do you need to define it more? Because I see it as a big profit kind of thing. What?
People are making a lot of profit off a grain of truth. There's truth in what they're talking about, but it's a generality. And some of the people they're dealing with are psychic and do have psychic sensitivities. But the true utilization of the psychic sensitivities is not for its commercialization.
Okay, so the moment in time, the minute that the umbilical cord is cut, the baby takes his breath.
Right.
It is that time in the zodiac for them. Now, where do we get this information about what's happening? Like Cancer, that time, the time of the month sign, or what sign is related to the child at that time?
Okay.
I'm not
for instance, all right, I'll give you an example. I was born at 12:28 a.m. 12:28 a.m. at 11:30:48. So that on 11:30:48 that day it was in Sagittarius. Okay. Now the sun travels through each sign of the zodiac every 30 days. Okay, it travels 1 degree per day. All right. All of your planets travel around the sun. Okay. And so when you took that first breath, that's like a snapshot of the solar system. Which is then anything born at a time has the qualities of that time. Okay. So that was the energy that you represented. You embodied that energy. You do embody that energy, that quality.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
If using your time of birth, it is the following year, the same time, same minute, same hour, same second, same week, same day, is it a different snapshot?
Sure, because all the planets are always moving. The The planet, and the other thing is that the solar system is moving. Our solar system is moving through the galaxy. So even though the Earth returns to its same position every year relative to the Sun is not in the same position relative to the universe.
Okay.
So we're talking about geometry. We're talking about cosmic patterns. Okay? So it's just like if I got a light shining straight at your face, it's going to affect you different if I have a light shining from the side of your head or from the back of your head. So it's about angles, and angles represents energies. So then all these different energies are circulating and creating different energy patterns. So every moment there's a different pattern. Because not only is each of the planets circulating in a different orbit, they're also spinning. And all of them as a cosmic molecule is also traveling. And it takes the sun approximately 26,000 years to make a total great year in its own orbit.
Okay. So that in that, our motivation, our goal, and our intent in meditation is the perfection of what is best for us. So that at the time of photograph, at the time of birth, that whatever we evolve from the spiritual nature that is transformed into the physical can be perfected for the best of ourselves, our family, our community. Each snapshot is a different design of a perfection that evolves.
Everyone is called into being to fulfill a duty, to fulfill a whole, to fulfill a quality. Okay, because all of us have been called here do work, because we're all extensions of the planet. And so the planet itself is a living entity that's going through a process. And we're extensions of that process. So it's all connected to a greater journey. You know, we're here in the context of all the other years that have preceded us. And for us not to understand that is for us to really understand what's really going on.
But like you said, if the beings that are in power, whose got our intent focused on the external,
right,
we never get the strength to create that which must come forth or will come forth. It reminds me of the
Lord. So we don't get it. Why don't we get it?
No, we do get it because it reminds me of the invention of the airplane. Someone once come up with that design, that purpose from within. And tried many times, but didn't complete it. Then somebody else came up with that design again and was successful.
Right.
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 So that in that all of us have that perfect design will evolve and be perfected. If not, if we discontinue with that goal or target, then someone else will come with that again, which will eventually.
Well, see, all human beings make up one body. Adam, when they talk about Adam, right. Adam was not one human, Adam was humanity. So we are all cells in the body of humanity moving towards perfection. So each of us plays a role in the total of the whole human development.
But so many people are so involved with the external, they didn't want to hear nothing serious about. I mean, how many people beside this group is about the closest I found to talking to somebody that's intellectual, that has taken some time to deal deeper within, because they're so, like you said, they're so programmed on the superficial level.
Right.
How can you create a design?
All of it is part of a process. We're in the transition now. We're moving from one era or one age into another age. So we're in the transition period. And so then what we're actually seeing we're seeing when they say that we're reaching the end of the world and the world's going to die or come to an end. Well, they're taking a spiritual or esoteric truth and literalizing it. And they're seeing that the physical world itself is going to die. But the world is consciousness. So we are dying to one state of consciousness and another state of consciousness being born. So what's happening is those people who are clinging on to this old way of consciousness are feeling that old way slipping away. And it's like if you're on a cliff and you feel yourself falling, you're going to grab tighter onto what you're used to. That's why as people stress more and more to change, those who are locked to their old identity are going to squeeze harder and harder to try to make people stay the way they were. That's why you see all stuff return to fundamentalism and traditional values and all this stuff, because in their mind that was when they had security. That's when they were on top. So they're going to try to make, but you can't push the baby back. You know, you can't bring summer back when it passes. You're a fool if you really try. That's what's happening. But in the context of somebody trying to push the baby back, they'll kill the baby. And that's what's happening. People are trying to push back time, and they're destroying things. Well, anyway, it's only short-lived. It's only going to be short-lived. The thing is what role are you going to play? Because if we're in the winter season, in preparation for the spring, during the winter, there's only apparent death. Because underground, the seeds are sprouting their roots in preparation to break forth in the spring. There can't be no spring without a winter. Which means when you know that winter is here, spring is near. And so as opposed to us focusing on the winter, we should be preparing for spring. But anyway, that's another issue. The issue I'm getting into here is actually talking about your purpose and how your birth date can help define what your purpose is. So in that context, in astrological studies, the sun represents purpose. An ephemeris. What an ephemeris is, it lists the location of all the planets for a particular time period. This one is for the 20th century. It goes from 1900 to the year 2000. So for any day from 1900 to the year 2000, you can look up that day and find out the location in terms of the degree and the minute that each planet was located in the different signs of the zodiac, which means where it was located in its orbit relative to the sun. So then, from that exact degree, like if I looked up my birthday, 11/30/48, I would go to November 1948. Go to November 1948, the 30th, and it was a Tuesday, and the sun was 7 degrees Sagittarius, 41 minutes. Now, what does it tell me? Well, it's a number of things. We have a number of techniques that one can utilize to gain insights in terms of what does that mean. So, let's see what would that deal with here. Do they have it listed here? They don't deal with the signs exactly here. Right. Well, Sagittarius. Anyway.
They do deal with Cancer too.
Okay. That's on another chart. All right. Anyway, your sun sign represents your purpose in life. Well, I have the other chart there. And each sign has a key word that will give you insights in terms of some basic operations, how you operate. Each sign also represents a quality and an element. So then the question is, do you understand what your element is?
What if you don't have a sun sign?
Everybody has a sun sign. If you were born, you got one. If you were born on
I'm looking
the
at
day.
this paper, I just see a moon and a...
No, you see it. It has all the... What's your birthday?
I just want to just say it.
Just a month. Just give me a month and a day.
No, it's July 4th.
July 4th. Okay, so you're a Cancer.
I mean, I'm sorry, July 5th.
July 5th. So
I
you're a
lied, I'm
Cancer.
sorry.
Right, so Cancer is ruled by the moon.
Yeah, there's no sun there, just a moon.
No, the sun was in Cancer.
Well,
See,
there's
your-
a thing
your-
here on this thing here.
Well, you got to understand to read it.
Okay.
See, don't jump to conclusions.
Right.
All right. So the sun determines your sign. Where the sun was when you were born determines your sun sign, the sign the sun was in. Okay, you have 10 planets And each of those planets in a different sign. But I'm not going to get off into the whole astrological thing. It gets right. It's confusing. But the point we're focusing on the sun. But not only do you have a sun sign, the day actually has a degree that the sun is in, because it's 30 degrees in sign. And so that's a qualifier. That's going to qualify. I'm giving you the
position of
how you can start getting more and more particular. Because, in the 30 days, you got thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people are born in that same sun sign. And then you got generations that are born in sun signs. But then none of them are born with the same pattern. Because none of them are born at the same place at the same time. Because you are at a latitude and a longitude. So a latitude is where you're born north and south, and longitude is east and west. So that's the X marks the spot.
So if I'm in Long Beach and the longitude is 45 degrees, and I'm at the longitude of 50, is that where the crossing is? That
longitude and latitude.
Latitude, yeah.
Right. So LA is 118 degrees 04 minutes, and then it's 34 degrees 04 north and 118 west. And so where they cross at represents the point that the person was born. And then you project this point out into space. And then they become the center of that moment. And so then the energy pattern then represents the quality. Because it's all about energy. And so you actually can look at the pattern of all that energy, and if you are trained in how to read it, you can see a particular theme and a quality is expressed there. And that represents the potential or the quality you carry with you. So anyway, so that's the X marks the spot. Now, there's something else I want to show you. I made a copy of it in terms of every sun sign has a key word. So Aries is I am. Aries is I am. Taurus is I have. Gemini is I think. Cancer is I feel. Leo is I will. Virgo is I analyze. Libra is I balance. Scorpio is I desire. Sagittarius is I see. Capricorn is I use. Aquarius is I know. And Pisces is I believe. Each sun sign has an element. We have that the elements and the qualities. That okay? We talked about the Trinity, which is the three. The Trinity, or the three qualities, or the mode, or the mode or the way in which spirit operates, like cardinal, fixed, and mutable, right? Initiating, responding, and transforming, right? It's like the dialectical process of theses, antithesis, and synthesis. All these other different kind of names: positive, negative, and neutral. Okay, so you have the three. So you have cardinal, which is outgoing. You have fixed, which is sustaining. And you have mutable, which equals transforming. And this is the way life operates. You have to have something to go out, right? You have to initiate something. Once you initiate something, you have to sustain the action for it to exist. And then once you sustain it, then you have to transform it to continue. Because if you sustain it, it becomes fixed. Life moves on, then it's going to end. So things have to constantly be changed. Anyway, so you got cardinal, fixed, and mutable, and then you have the four elements of fire, earth, air, and water. Right? fire is inspirational.
Or intuition.
Or intuitional. Earth is practical. Material. Air is mental. Intellectual. Also associated, like associate. To have ideas, you got to associate things. To have I think. To think, you just can't think one thing. To think, you got to think about how things are. You know, things, not things. And water is emotional. And that's just the general qualities. Now,
what did you say fire was?
fire is inspirational, intuitional. In general, it's like, right, yeah, they hyped up, fire signs, you know, energetic. So now the 3 times 4 equals 12. That's the 12 signs of the zodiac. So the signs of the zodiac actually are functions of the 3 qualities and the 4 elements. So that means that Aries, that's where I need up. Get a big board in here. We're working on it. All right. That's all right.
The 12 equals the 12 signs.
12 equals the 12 signs. So what I'm trying to say is the 12 signs really represents the different combinations of energies of life, as opposed to the zodiac signs. They're not just somebody doesn't think that up. They're actually a system of how energy interacts in the universe. So then if you take the 12, let me get some tools here. Okay. So then you have Aries, which is I am, keyword, and it is cardinal fire. Cardinal is outgoing, fire is inspirational. So you have outgoing inspiration. So Aries is always hyped up. You got to do stuff. They can't be restless. They're also very major issue for Aries is looking before you leap. They're always jumping into stuff, but they're very, reactive. They always got to be doing something. If they don't do something positive, they do something negative. Taurus, I have, and they are fixed earth. They're builders. They want to make things solid. So they don't come in here and make sure this table ain't wobbly, because they want it to be solid. So you build foundation and deal with money, material things. So then you have, I have, what do they have? Possessions. Then you have Gemini, which is I think. Gemini is mutable air. Mutable is transforming, air is thinking. So they always think about stuff. They hyper curious, they always talk a lot, always restless, because they always want to be doing something in terms of more information. They want to know about this, want to know about that. The major problem with Gemini is that they scatter. Next is Cancer. I feel.
That's me.
Cancer is cardinal water. Cardinal is outgoing, water is emotions, outgoing emotions. So they're always emotions, going through changes with their emotions.
Mine is fixed though. I fixed it up.
Oh, yeah. Age and maturity can do that.
I have met some weird cancers. I mean, up to the point you be in the house visiting, they get up and shut the door and leave you.
So then you got see, this is just sun sign.
I mean, they may have.
Yeah. It changes based upon your consciousness. See, every sign has positive and negative attributes to it. So Because like Aries, part of the sign of Aries, they're very creative, they're explorers, they want to always initiate new things, they're trailblazers, leaders. They always want to be out in front of the pack. But at the same time, they can be restless and headstrong. They might take you in the wrong direction. You know, they might take you off the cliff somewhere.
That's wisdom.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're saying they're positive and negative every sign.
Wisdom gets
Right.
balance.
That's right.
Experience.
That's right.
You don't repeat and go
That's
back
right.
and do it again.
Some don't.
Well,
See, you don't, but see, this is generic. The other thing is each sign is modified. You got your rising sign, where all the other planets at, you got a lot of other things. It gets very, very integrate when it comes to just specifically you. You can be an Aries, but the rest of your energy could be in Taurus or something. Or it could be in water, or it could be in fire. You know, so it just depends. That's why to really know, you have to get a natal chart done based upon the exact time and place of birth. And that's what you really see what the real thing is. So this is general. So then, but this is, if your sun is in this is going to be your basic underlying way of operating. Basic is underlying, but it's going to be modified by other aspects. Just like I'm a Sagittarius, but my rising sign is Virgo. And so Virgo is I analyze. So then, Sag's keyword is I see. Virgo is I analyze. I analyze what I see. So what am I giving you? I'm giving you an analysis of what I see. Sag is very philosophical. So then, you know what I'm doing? I'm giving you what I'm doing. African philosophy. You know, that's what I do. So then, and then I can tell you other things in terms of 10th house, Gemini, and Mercury, and all this kind of stuff. But that gets more complicated. Good. Stay around and get into all that.
Now, who was that you just?
Fixed, sustaining, fire, inspiration. So Leo's, main thing with Leo's is like they're ego tripping. Because they fixed, but fire. So they want to lead, they're dramatic, they want to be in the middle of things. So a lot of times Leos love recognition.
That's true.
You know. So, but at the same time, it is whose will? Is it my will or thy will? Is it the little will or the big will? Because you can get recognition from what you do, or you can do something to get recognition. It's same outcome with different motive. So then Leo's entertainment, you know.
Humor, sense of humor, natural.
So then you have Virgo. I analyze. Virgos love to serve. And they are mutable earth. Then you have Libra. I balance. And that is cardinal, outgoing, air. Libras love relationships, to relate, to trust, social relationships. So air, like associate, cardinal, initiate. Scorpio, I desire. It's fixed, water. Scorpios hold their emotions in, keep stuff in. They call Scorpios frozen fire. Because they always got stuff below the surface that you don't know, that they really trust you. And then if you violate their trust, then they'll never will let you in again. This was Scorpio. Right, that's Scorpio. Now this is okay. Scorpio's over here. This is Sag. Sag is IC. IC is mutable fire. Okay, then you got Capricorn, which is IUs, which is cardinal earth. Then you have Aquarius, which is I know, which is fixed air. I know, right? And then you have Pisces, which is I believe, and that's mutable water. Now, if you look at this, you can see that you have fire, air, earth, and water. That's 4.
And what was Pisces again?
Then you have, wait a minute, I'm wrong. This is fire, earth, and water is here. Black thing. It's here. Same person. Pisces, I believe. Right.
Oh, then what was Libra?
Libra is our balance.
Okay.
So you have fire, earth, air, and water. Fire, earth, air, and water. Fire, earth, air, and water. So you have 3 sets of 4, which equals 12.
What's Scorpio?
I desire.
Do you have this on a video?
I got it on some handouts and stuff. I thought I had copies of it. I really want to get into all this stuff.
I saw some handouts.
People's
some of
questions
this.
simply, you know.
Yeah.
So Virgo is what?
I analyze and I serve.
Air, water, what?
Virgo is earth.
Earth?
Right. All you got to do is go fire, earth, air, and water. Fire, earth, air, and water. Fire, earth, air, and water.
And Gemini was
Air.
Air.
Because it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, starting with Aries. And then you also have positive, masculine and feminine. You have positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So you have a dialectic going on. So you have duality that's happening. You got a trinity, 3 that's happening. You got a 4 that's happening. And then the 1 is the whole thing. So it's a numerical thing that's also going on. So again, we're talking about astronomy or astrology. We're talking about geometry, which is patterns and angles. We're talking about arithmetic, which is number. And we're talking about music, because we're talking about the harmony of the vibration between the two. Because each sign has a color, each sign has a numerical, has a note that goes with it. So a lot of your masters that came up during the Renaissance, Shakespeare's and Beethoven's and Mozart, they were studying this stuff. And they was creating stories, songs, poetry that really were taking these principles and putting personalities on them.
Well, there's 12 tones in the chromatic scale. Is that related?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Everything that has an equivalent numerical has an equivalence. Just like you have the 7 major colors, aren't there 7 major? What? Oh, okay. Well, they are. So
Primary colors.
primary colors, you got notes,
There's
you
complementary
have,
colors.
and so all those things are equivalent. They all have corresponding levels that they relate to. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you were mentioning about music and color and stuff.
Right.
Now, where's the spiritual at? Because people say, well, I can talk about your zodiac, you know, what's going to happen to you in the future. You haven't mentioned anything about the spiritual. How are they using this to foretell the future?
How, because they're talking about cycles. Everything that is physical is an expression of the invisible. So then if you understand and everything is based upon energy. And so then if you understand the energy patterns and how you relate to the energy patterns, and I can, just like now, you can predict when winter's going to come, right? And you know that when winter comes, certain things are going to happen. So if I'm living up in the north, I will know when winter comes, it's going to snow. Now, if you came from the south and didn't know that, I could seem like a magician to you. Because I can predict the future.
That's right.
So the only reason it seems like it's magical to you is because you don't understand the principles from which they are reading.
I mean, but they're talking about jobs and family and, you know.
That's because job, family, or particular characteristics or functions. Like jobs. Job is the 6th house is jobs. Money. The 2nd house is money. The 3rd house is education. The 4th house is real estate and the home. The 5th house is love affairs, recreation, entertainment, risk-taking, and children. The 7th house is marriage and partnerships, relationships. The 8th house is joint finances, also going to be taxes and inheritances. The 9th house is religion, law, philosophy, higher education, long-distance travel. The 10th house is career, business, your honor and fame in the honor world. The 11th house is professional associations, friends, and like if you're in a certain profession, those that you associate with is similar of like mind. The 12th house is a house of suffering and confinement and transformation and metamorphosis.
What sign is that?
Well, see, the 12th house is Pisces.
Oh.
Now look at what happened during the Piscean age. What happened in the Piscean age? Confinement, suffering, transformation. Because the 12th house, Pisces, is the accumulation of the total journey. So it's the accumulation of all the signs come together in Pisces. Where are we? We are all the races come together in us. Pisces is a water sign. Black people are Piscean, which is ruled by Neptune, which is, then we get each sign has a planet that rules it. Aries is ruled by Mars, planet of war. Taurus is ruled by Venus, deals with possessions and also deals with value, things that are valuable, both what you value personally and valuable things. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, that rules the mind and communication. Cancer is ruled by the moon, which rules the mother, or the womb, or nurturing. Leo is ruled by the sun, which relates to purpose and consciousness and will. Virgo is ruled also by Mercury, which represents the mind and intellect and analysis. Libra is also ruled by Venus, which rules relationships, partnerships, and marriage. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, that deals with hidden factors. Scorpio is always secrets. People in Scorpio are just like the secret service and gangs and underworld and crime things. You know. But they like intense and deal with power. You know, and so then
Any presidents in that Scorpio?
You probably got for all kinds of stuff like that, you know. Anyway, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, expansion. Sagittarius is always talking about more and this and, you know, these big plans, these big ideas. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is real cold, real calculating. And it's like discipline, order, structure. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is a planet of revolution, radical changes, and far out kind of thinking and stuff. And Pisces is ruled by Neptune, which is like, deals with the invisible, so they're into drugs and things with altered states of consciousness, and or meditation, or they all head into religious trip. They like to go in ecstasy and, you know, this other kind of world type thing. So then, now this is general, and everything is each person is modified based upon your particular thing that you only know when you get the specific pattern that you were born. So that's kind of a yes.
Question. The house of the first one, the house of Aries, was what we didn't get.
Okay, house of Aries. Aries really deals with the realization of self. It also deals with the first house is the physical body, you know, and the personality. The first house represents the mask that you wear, that you project to the outer world. It's your rising sign. The first house is your rising sign. The rising sign represents the way you appear to people. So when they see you, when people see you at first, they see you by your rising sign. When they get to know you, they will see your sun sign. So, and then what else is there? I went through that. Okay. So that's we got off on all this to give you some context of what I'm giving you here.
That was interesting to be sure. I enjoyed it.
Sure.
We don't have to pay you $3.99 a minute to get our parents' permission.
No.
I like
Every day, you know, roughly. Sometimes, you know, based upon the orbit, it's faster or slower, 12 to 14. So average 13 degrees a day. So that's like roughly 3.5 days, or 3 days, 2.5 days in a sign, because the moon goes through the whole zodiac in a month. Right? So then Mercury and Venus are about to go through the whole zodiac in a year. They stay about one per month, sign per month. Then Jupiter is 2.5 years. Saturn is, Jupiter is 2 years. Saturn
Take Saturn is, what's it? Uranus is, you not understanding?
No.
What was your question?
How long does it take a planet to go through a house?
Right, a house is 30 degrees. So then
So
how many degrees does a planet move per day? It determines how, if it's 30 degrees in a house, say moon is 13 degrees a day, it'll take it 2.5 days to go 30 degrees. It stay in the house, that's the fastest. Like Uranus, it travels 84 years in a whole cycle. It stays in the house roughly 7 years in a house. Pluto stays in the house roughly anywhere from 15 to 28 years. Neptune is about 14 years. Saturn is 2.5 years. Jupiter is 2 years. I think Jupiter and Mars roughly 2 years. I ain't got it all fully memorized. So you just look at what is the orbit of the planet and divide it by 12. Okay, it's 12 houses. You take the orbit of the planet and divide it by 12. How long does it take the planet to orbit one time around the sun?
So in my chart, the planets were in these houses for years.
They will be. Yeah, depending upon the slower moving planets. The slower moving planets, I think I have that. Let me get this. I got all that. Since you raised these questions, we'll get it. Here, this is the planet from the sun. This is the eclipse. Okay. The moon takes 27.5 days to go in orbit. Mercury is a year. Venus is a year. Mars is roughly 687 days, which is roughly 2 years. No, yeah, almost, not totally 2 years. Jupiter is 12 years on orbit, so it stays in the house 1 year. It takes Jupiter 12 years to go to complete orbit, so it stays in the house 1 year. Saturn is 28-year orbit, that's 2.5 years in the house. Uranus is 84 years, that's 7 years in the house. Neptune is 165-year orbit. And then Pluto is 248-year orbit. You just divide it by 12. I mean, they got books that tell you all that too.
Is it because of the distance they are from the Earth?
That's right. The bigger the orbit is, the longer it takes for it to go around. Right. Right. Okay.
Now this,
Yes.
on the synthesis sheet that you passed out, how come there's only 10 symbols?
There are 10 planets. You have 2 planets that rule double signs. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, and Venus rules Taurus and Taurus and Libra. So this is a synthesis chart dealing with all the 10 planets. So if you look at Mercury, the 3rd planet on the chart, you'll see that it says Mercury sign and Virgo sign. So it rules both Mercury and Virgo. Yes.
So the sun moves through the various houses also, correct? Or is it the Earth relative to the sun?
Actually, the Earth is
moves
moving
to the sun.
around the sun.
But we see it as relative.
It's relative, right. Okay, let me get this out to you. Now, with these this is from analytical psychology, and what it's talking about is the 4 elements of intuition, feeling, thinking, and sensation, which represents intuition, fire, sensation, earth, feeling, water, and thinking, air. And so it talks about how that particular element operates. Okay. So basically what we're saying is, what element are you? So what element are you? Are you fire? Are you earth? Are you air? Or are you water? So then this comes out of a Jungian psychology, the psychological types. And so it talks about, it says, every individual possesses both tendencies. They talk about introvert and extrovert. If you look at the zodiac, it shows you how you have positive and negative, or out and in. So when we say that man is made in the image of God, and God is a hierarchy of forces, then you can see how you are made in the image of God. The same forces operating in the universe operate in you. So when they say that man is made in the image of God, they're not talking about the physical face and eyes and a mouth. They're talking about your nature, which you're composed of, is of the same nature as God, which is what makes up the universe.
Earth, water, and fire.
Right, the 4 elements.
But I'm only water sign.
No, everybody has all elements. Because you have all 12 signs.
Within yourself.
Right.
So you would have all elements.
You just have an element that is dominant
Oh, I see.
over the others.
You didn't say that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like I said, this is a 20-year course. So you can't get everything in one session. This is a whole, astrology has, oh please, you're talking about, astrology would actually be a college.
Yep.
And there's different divisions. You got electional astrology, it talks about how astrology works in the world, or world affairs. There's people who just specialize in that. We have financial astrology, people who just look at the cycles, the financial cycles, and how it's related to astrological cycles. That's a whole field. You got medical astrology, that's a whole field. You got spiritual astrology, that's a whole field. You have esoteric astrology, which is another field. Then you have vocational career, you got relationship astrology, how you take 2 people and create one chart from both of these people and see when these people come together, what type of energy is operating, what's the purpose of the relationship. So you can do that for business partners or for marriage partners, or how a child and a parent, what's their real relationship. You know, we think it's one thing, it'd be a whole other thing that's going on in terms of how are you affecting that child's energy pattern and how that child affecting your energy pattern. And what's the real relationship that's going on there as opposed to, we thinking one thing.
How strongly do you believe in this?
How strong? It's true. I've verified. I've been studying since 1971. I do charts, and it gets, how things make you get shivers because stuff, just starts coming out, or people come back and say, how did you? I say, I didn't know. All I do is read the chart. Like, I'm not clairvoyant. I've just studied. Now, where my intuitive mind can just synthesize all these facts and stuff starts coming out. There's no magic to it, And the thing is, you are your chart. The chart is like a map. So the chart doesn't do anything. It's like a map doesn't do anything. You just follow the map, just lets you know the terrain. And you can follow the map or don't follow the map. It doesn't change the terrain. So, right. And so
the reason why I asked this, because I've heard some movie stars and some presidents' wives that consult their astrologists, and I thought, oh boy, this is way off.
Hey, there's corporate, if you start dealing with people in the upper worlds, these people got advisors who are clairvoyants, people who deal with tarot, people who deal with astrology, but it ain't that mainstream crap you get in the paper. That's just some general stuff. The real stuff is highly technical, highly complex to the normal person. Once you learn how to do it, it's not complex. Like anything, you can learn to do anything. It didn't become simple to you. But when you came into it, looking at it, it was like, man, what is all this stuff? But then you just say, okay, just step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 5. Then you start adding it all together. Yeah, but it's incredible. It's incredible. Yes, sir.
You had a thought that came to mind. I had a lady, and she was saying, she was deep into astrology. She said the exact same thing as you said. And it just, I wasn't ready for it. She said she married a guy based on what his chart said.
Mm-hmm.
And they came together and they had a good relationship. And they planned their kids by the chart.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, I have one son that I have to constantly look after because he's going in the wrong direction. I said, this is out of my
Yeah, like all my kids
The
are
guy
dead.
is dead.
Right.
He's dead.
He's dead.
And
right.
she knew what was going to happen.
Right.
And I said,
The chart is a map of the energy that came into existence at a particular time. And so, and then you get into the whole thing about karma and reincarnation and even how this energy comes in. But the chart is just a tool.
and she also said, like you said, you cannot take astrology and learn in a day. She said it's almost like it's a university course.
Right.
It's going to take, what she said, 300 and how many days in a year? She said it'll take you that many years to understand astrology.
Yeah, it's infinite.
He said,
You always learn
it's every day. You cannot drop it.
Right.
Don't just drop it and pick it up 2 or 3 weeks, you're lost.
Right. But different people some people have a natural tendency. They can pick it up more naturally than other
Right.
individuals, like anything. Some people have a natural ability with it. Other people, it'll be very difficult for them.
She also said that once you study astrology, elements, like the elements charts and understanding like the days, the month, she said, and math, it'll all just come right together. You say, oh, is this what this is about?
Right. That's right. Yes, sir.
If someone's doing a chart, how accurate would they be if they don't have the actual time, just the day and the location?
They have to do what they call a solar chart. And they're only accurate within 24 hours. You see, it changes 1 degree every 4 minutes. The actual, you see, you have 4 things. You have the planets. Planets represent psychological functions or urges. Every planet is a particular kind of urge. Sun's a power urge, Mercury is the intellectual urge, and the moon is the domestic urge, Mars is the desire urge, Venus is the urge for love and relationship, Saturn is a safety urge, Uranus is the urge for liberation and freedom, Neptune is for idealism, and Pluto deals with social society. Pluto represents an age group. All those that are born within a certain, like 14-year period, belong to a certain age period. Anyway, so planets are functional urges, signs are attitudes and needs. So signs represent the kind of need you need to get fulfilled. If I'm a Sagittarian, I have a need to deal with philosophy and philosophical abstract ideas, or to deal with travel, or foreign cultures and that kind of thing, or sports, outdoors, moving around, out wide spaces, freedom. If I don't have that, then I, start getting into a negative thing. And if you understand the nature of the signs, then you can understand what people need.
Yeah.
And so then if you have kids and you understand what their nature is, then you can understand why they're doing what they're doing. And you don't get all freaked out behind trying to make them be what they are not. It makes you be a lot more relaxed. Plus you can direct them in the kinds of activities that match their energy, as opposed to trying to push them into something you want them to be. Because we're just guardians of these souls. We don't own them, And they also come here to teach us things. So anyway, that's planets, signs, and you have houses. The 12 houses represent areas of life experience. So if I have a lot of energy in my fourth house represents home, private. So I do a lot of things based around my house, or things that I do are like my house. So if another person has something in the, fifth house, they're always loving entertainment and, associations or whatever. So each of the houses represents, so if a person has an energy in a certain configuration or area of the chart, it lets you know what area of life a lot of the energy is going to be focused in on. And then you have aspects. Aspects are the positive and negative relationship between the elements. So you have stressful aspects, which are 90 and 180 degrees, squares and oppositions, which create stress and tension. And then you have harmonious aspects, which are functions of 3, 60, 120. That means that energy works very harmonious and creatively with each other. So then that also lets you know that, say, like in every chart you'll have what they call a dynamic focus. The most stressful element in that chart represents your most stressful, plaguing issue in your life. And until you get a handle on it, you won't get a handle on yourself. So then, you have all these things when you start looking at each one of them, it paints a picture. And so then you say, okay, here's your song. This is what you can do with it. But then you have to do it. Just because I sit there and tell you all this don't mean nothing if you don't do nothing with it. So anyway, now back to this piece, because I got a couple more handouts I want to get to y'all before we get out of here. So look up your particular element. It talks about, it says in addition on the second page, about the third paragraph, or page 2, the second column, about the third paragraph, it says, in addition to attitude type, we also distinguish 4 function types. The 4 basic psychological functions are thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Thinking is the rational capacity to structure and synthesize diverse data by means of conceptual generalizations. Feeling is the function which demonstrates, determines value. It is the function that values and promotes human relationships, how you feel about something. Sensation is that function which perceives and adapts to external reality via the senses. So people who are the earth sign, they are related to the physical world, you know. So you say intuition is defined as perception via the unconscious. That is, the perception of representations or conclusions whose origin is obscure. These 4 functions arrange themselves into 2 pairs of opposites, thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Then it goes into more detail on the second page of each one of those, in terms of thinking type, feeling type, sensation type, and intuitive type. So I pass this out for you, number 1, to say, what is your element? And what is your functional type? This gives you an understanding of your basic mode of relating to your environment. Also in relationships, what are the types that you are relating with? Because once you understand their type, you can also understand how they relate to the world and can start to understand them. A lot of times we judge people by where we come from as opposed to judging people by where they're coming from. That's why a lot of relationships break down. Because you have the relationship is based upon the balance, which means you have 2 people. So then you have to understand both of the type and then do they balance. Just like fire signs and air signs are complementary, and water signs and earth signs are complementary, because water stays on earth and fire nurtured by air. So if you get air and water, that mixes stuff up. You know, water and fire, you can get steam, or the water gonna put the fire out. Earth smothers fire. So then that can help you understand what's going on when you're interacting with people. And then if you're conscious, you can compensate for it. Because you ain't gonna get all bent out of shape, because well, that's how that person is. As opposed to, wrestling with it, you know.
Right. It's working, it don't work right. Any way you put it, it don't fit right.
2 of the same signs, they'll be alike. But then, see, that can be good and bad. Now, some people need variety and stimulation. Some people need a certain level of tension in their life. Because then things become too the same. So, well, it depends. But see, that's on your sun sign. You got to look at the whole chart. Because although, like, your sun sign could be, what is your sun sign? Fire. And your rising sign could be something else. That sun sign could be fire, but their rising sign could be something else. It's each one of their planets is in something. So, I mean, like I say, when you start getting more specific, it's more and more complex. Because if you do a relationship chart, you take your sun, their sun, your moon, their moon, your Mercury, their Mercury, their Venus, your Venus, their Mars, your Mars, their Jupiter, your Jupiter, their Saturn, your Saturn, their Uranus, your Uranus, their Neptune, your Neptune, their Pluto, your Pluto, and how that stuff relates. And there's about 10 other things you do. So, that's what I say, that's one. Now, the next thing I want to give out to y'all is each sign has a Herculean task. The labors of Hercules is not some made-up story. First of all, Hercules is a black hero that comes out of Africa. And the Greeks took it and made it into a white figure. The original Hercules and the original Samson were black sun gods. Black sun gods.
And we still are.
Right. And basically what the Hercules and what Samson represent is the sun going through the 12 signs of the zodiac. Because there's the 12 labors of Hercules. Each labor represents the characteristics of one of the signs of the zodiac. And it's talking about how the energy of life goes through its 12 different combinations.
They sure do. I was thinking the same thing, because I'm teaching miseducation to the kids. I can't say it because
You knew that a long time ago.
I know it irritates me. The more I'm sitting here, I've been teaching Greek and Rome. I'm on that now. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Quite all right. So, but see, in terms of, you have macrocosm and microcosm. As above, so below. What is true for the macrocosm or the greater universe is also true for the microcosm of the little universe, which is us. So you have a sun in the big universe, and you have the sun in you, because we are made in the image of God. So as the big sun goes through its changes, the little suns go through their changes. And so Hercules not only represents the sun as it goes through its journey, but the sun is you, is your soul. And it also represents the 12 lessons of the soul to become whole.
That's almost like the saying, whatever goes around comes around.
Right. In one sense, it also is talking about karma. In terms of whatever you put out there is going to come back to you.
Yeah.
Because the universe feeds whatever you put out.
But you get a chance in karma to go back and change that and to make it better, though.
There's always a chance until the end.
I'm talking about reincarnation.
Every moment you have the opportunity to change your action. So every moment you have the opportunity to change your future, because your future is a response to your present. Just like the next step you take is based upon the step you're taking now.
Yeah, I agree on that.
So each moment is a new day if you only change.
But why is it that some people are fixed? Is it part of their zodiac sign? Some people get locked into something. They get addicted into something. They can't step out of that house. They can't push, or they can't get any fire going there.
Well, that could be a number of issues. But the key issue is consciousness. Because consciousness is reality. And see, most of us have become conditioned to thinking a certain type of way. And so your conscious mind then becomes the prisoner of your spiritual self, because it doesn't allow your spiritual self to be.
We're not even taught to deal with that conscious mind. We're not taught to release it.
Right.
And then if we find it from release, we get scared.
Right.
Because even in this class, my conscious mind has changed a lot. And it got to a point where I was scared. And I talked to somebody that was a spiritualist, and he said, allow it. But I'm holding on because I'm afraid of what, but if the intent is to our positive, then I should not be afraid, because it's going to be a better development anyway. Do you hear what I said, teacher?
My daughter's calling me. Okay. So you were talking about people being locked in terms of not even allowing, and then the fear issue. But it's like the fear issue comes from identity, because you've been conditioned for so many years to identify with certain truths or belief systems or whatever. So as your mind starts to bring in new knowledge that contradicts a lot of that old knowledge, then it raises doubts on all that knowledge. So then, and you're new. So then, just like a baby, when you're new, you're wobbly, you're unstable, right? So you're shaky. But a baby don't know, because it's just beginning. But an adult, to go back to a baby state, is very fearful for them. Because, I was real secure in what I was in. Now I'm like insecure, but I'm an adult. So I'm supposed to be secure. So I'm going to resist not that feeling. Unless you've been conditioned to understand the process. We start out as fools and we become wise through experience. So any new path, you're going to start out as a fool. You're going to start off feeling foolish. That's a part of the process. So if you understand that's a part of the process, it actually reinforces the process. If you understand what I'm saying? Because like when I got into African dance, I was a great ghetto dancer, you know what I'm saying? But then I got into African dance, it was like I felt at first awkward because I didn't know the moves. So you have a resistance of wanting to go out there because you don't want to look stupid. But the only way you learn it is you go out there and go through it. So once the teachers let me understand that, then I was able to overcome my fears because I knew what the process was. You know, and so again, our people have no longer been initiated into the real wisdom of living. And so thusly, when we come into certain things, we really, a lot of times, run away from it because it starts challenging. I took one of my supervisors at work, we started talking about different things. They started, what do you got? I said, okay, I started dropping those things. So when I said, okay, let me take you on a trip. So I took her to SO1, the Aquarian Spiritual Center. I took it to Simply Wholesome, you know, all these places. It was like, I gave her some tapes on the goddess and the true spirit of femininity and ancient this and that. She's saying, hey, this stuff is scary because it feels like you just pulling the rug right up from under me. And so I said, yeah, but it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Expand
As long, yeah, but you got to be, I mean, this right here, they support me. Right
That's
here,
it.
this group here.
You gotta have a support group.
And there are
Right.
times when I felt real stupid and they said, well, that's okay, that's a part of it.
There
you know?
it is. Right.
So as long
gotta
as
have
you
a
support
group.
her.
That's right. You gotta have a support group. That's the same thing we talk about the brothers in the hood. You try to take them out the set. They gotta have a support group. If you don't have no support, it ain't gonna work. We take cats out and expose the stuff. When you put them right back in there, no support.
That's right.
They ain't gonna make it. It might be 1 in 10,000 that might make it, but the norm, not gonna make it.
Send them to European schools, the same thing. Still no support group.
That's right.
Over half black boys don't graduate from high school in the United States.
Yeah. The reality is not being supported because a lot of, see what's happening, the young people that's being born today also are being called in this transition. But what's happening because the adults don't know what's going on, we're not providing them with the proper orientation to really fulfill what their true souls are here to do. So what happens is they start to articulate their job in the negative. I was looking at the school thing, these new schools thing, they're talking about partnerships and families and community. But what are the young folks doing? They're uniting in do or die relationships. They're telling us what we have to do. If the adults would unite in do or die relationships, we would solve our problems. But because they're not initiated or educated, it comes out negative. Becomes self-destructive. If they just had knowledge, then, which is the greatest fear the system has. Because we used to do game troops, and the police used to come and do everything they could to disrupt any kind of positive regeneration of that element, because they know that's their greatest threat.
That's right.
Because they know what's up. That's why they're moving on them, because we did a chart on age cycles. And we talk about 3 28-year cycles. You got 0 to 28, you got 28 to 56, and 56 to 84. 42 is the midpoint. So from 35 to 42, when do they kill off most of us? Because the young males. Most of them before they get 35.
Before they get 35.
45 to 44 is the age.
Right. So none never make it across that crest where they really truly mature and become true leaders. Even Malcolm died before those ages.
All at age 39.
Right.
That's right.
And see, they know a lot of this knowledge. But they use it selfishly because they've been separated from the spiritual realm, so they disconnected. But anyway, that's something else. So let me give you the rest of this information.
That was good, that was good.
It's all good.
I enjoyed it.
That's this one now, because I am being called Jackson. So, but this is, let's see, it's 2. That's these
While you're passing that out, I'd just like to add this. We must never underestimate the power of what goes down here in this room. This is probably one of the, if not the most progressive action we could possibly be doing, just coming here on a regular basis. I had the opportunity to go to Washington High School today and speak with a black male group. And the power that was reflected because of the studies that I...
They got two back there. Okay, basically what this comes out of is that book I was showing you, The Labors of Hercules. And because of time, I'll just summarize. Basically, each is 4 sheets altogether. So one of them talks about the journey through the signs and how, that's one. The other one talks about the
Half of the soul,
half of the soul, the zodiac. So basically what it's telling you is that the zodiac is a philosophical system of how life operates. And people use that philosophical system for divination. That's a side track. That's like just an offshoot of what the real thing really is. And so then it also is saying each of the signs is a spiritual lesson. And so by the sign that you find yourself in is also indicating a particular lesson of life that you have incarnated to learn. And so then each of the labors of Hercules identifies a major problem or task related to each of the signs. So that if you read and understand your Herculean task, it will give you keys in terms of the importance of your purpose in this life, this particular life. Each of us has many lives. And so, and I'm telling you, it is profound. And again, the profoundness comes and you have to reflect into the deeper meaning of the story. Although this talks about the spiritual aspects of it, and not just the, you wouldn't conquer the lion, or you wouldn't fall a bull, and you wouldn't clean some stables. Each of those have a spiritual lesson. So what I'm saying is, 1, understand the element that you're in and how that element functions. If you're fire, air, earth, and water. Intuitional, thinking, feeling, sensation. Understand that, so then you can understand how you function. Also, it helps you understand how others are. 2, what's your key word? You I am, I think, or you water. So that also gives you insights in terms of your particular purpose, how you function. Understand your Herculean task. It will also give you clues in terms of the major issues you are confronted with in your life. And then there's a couple other things that I had brought, but we don't have time to get into, so I will do it next time. And what that is there's this book called the Astrological Mandala, or 360 symbols of the zodiac. So each degree of the zodiac has a symbol. So 9 degrees of Sagittarius reads, a mother leads her small child step by step up a steep stairway. Now, if you understand the meaning of symbolism, you will understand what this is saying relative to my purpose. The need in any social situation to assist the less evolved in their management of the problems which society requires its members to make. What is implied here is social concern. So, I'm leading you up the stairway. Because the stairway or the stair steps is initiation. And my primary work is basically that, is to initiate people into the lesser mysteries. We have the lesser mysteries and the greater mysteries. The lesser mysteries is the knowledge and techniques to understand self. Because as you understand self, then you go into the greater mysteries, which means you have to go down into self.
But you only can do that by yourself. I only can give you techniques, but you have to do the journey. I cannot go with you. The teacher cannot go with the student into its deeper initiation. They can only prepare them to go into the initiation. It's an individual journey into the greater mysteries. But the true greater mysteries is when you have truly conquered the lower body, the physical, emotional, and mental. When you start to go into the spiritual dimensions, that means you have to go deep into your own unconscious mind. And down within your own unconscious mind is all kinds of psychic debris and demonic type energies. Because in the unconscious mind is a residue of all your existence, positive and negative. And so again, I can give the whole story about the resurrection and how Christ knew the hell and the temptation. All that is talking about how the initiate or your own self has to go through that journey. The Christ life is a symbolical story of the journey that every initiate must travel to be resurrected and to ascend into divine consciousness. Buddha, illumination, enlightenment. Right.
He went into his self.
Right.
And the deeper self, and he stayed within there for several days until he got to a point of enlightenment.
Right. It's all one. No. Christ is a title. Right. So there were many Christs. The Europeans came and took the mythology and the story and made it historical.
How do you go about finding out what is that stress that you need to overcome?
Basically, if you really reflect objectively on your life, it's there.
The answer, you're saying?
The answer is always there.
Yeah.
These are just tools that help you objectify, because we have been conditioned to look, we have a tendency to rationalize, we have a tendency to deny, and all these things. And so that's why we have to have these tools. But it's all within. It's there. I don't know. Keep a journal. You keep a journal and start looking at the patterns. You can start seeing patterns. You deal with your dreams. Your dreams are communication from the unconscious mind to the conscious mind. But it's in a symbolical format. You just study symbolism, understand what's the nature of symbols within you. There's a number of a book called by Swartz called Symbol and Symbology. Another one is called Symbols and Esotericism. Then you have a dictionary of symbols and myths. Read Carl Jung's work on man dissembled. There's a whole body of knowledge that starts getting you into understanding the psychological meaning of symbols, what they really represent. Because the unconscious or the intuitive mind communicates through symbols. But life is symbolism. Because everything we do is a reflection of a greater reality we have to be conscious of. So once you get trained, you can look at people and how they dress and how things they do and start seeing the greater meaning of what you're doing. That's why other, masters can sit down here and watch somebody walk and tell you what's wrong with them. There's different ways certain things happen. You're out of alignment. And see, your emotion or your inner self is reflected in the outer thing that you do.
Do you have any lectures on how religion, Christianity, I don't know, infused
The Western interpretation. Okay, thank you. All right. See, because Christianity, you read Western origin of major Western origin of major African origins of major Western religions. All the major religions came out of Africa. All the original sages, masters, prophets were initiates who spoke in symbolical language, because that's the language of initiation.
because only those who initiate can really understand what they're really talking about. But if I, just like now, if I start talking about, if I went in and just talking about astrology, you wouldn't know what the hell I was talking about. If I was saying that your rising sign is, you have a Virgo rising sign with Mercury in the third house conjunct the sun, sextile to the moon in the eighth, and it's intercepted in the ninth between Libra and Aries, with intercepted Pluto in Scorpio that is opposed to Saturn. No. But I could translate those and saying, talking about the Great Father is dealing with the inner secrets of the wise woman who is married to the old teacher, who then journeys to the mountain to communicate with the Divine Father. You can understand what I'm talking about. You can get some sense of what I'm talking about. I've just translated the symbols for those energies into persons so that people who are not initiated can get a sense of what I'm talking about. But then you would misinterpret what I'm talking about and think I'm talking about people. I'm not even talking about people, I'm talking about energy. That's what happened with religion. They were talking about energy, but because the masses could not understand all these complex ideas because they haven't been educated, then they just made them into stories. And then people started thinking the story was the truth. People believed that Jesus really walked on the water. Do or die. Well, what does that mean? When he walked on water, what does that mean he walked on water? Right. Water represents emotions. So he walked on his emotions. He stood on top of his emotions. He didn't fall down like most people and become overcome by his emotions. He wasn't swimming in all his emotions. He was walking on top of it, so he controlled his emotions. Country. The vital mammalia produces plants or animal life of a similar nature. Consequently, as in the instance of a vital disorder being caused by the vital mammalia, the latter will offer substances able to cause as well as cure this malady, because every action contains its reaction. Here, the dates of vitalization must be known as they influence the active or reactive effects. Basically what it's talking about is that within the context of the environment that creates a disorder is also the key to creating harmony or the order or the cure. It really goes back into homeopathy and also inoculation. Turns out you can take a little bit of the malaria or whatever and put it in and create an antibody to the defense.
One of the interesting things that they are developing with what they call congenital, that it breaks the virus down to its individual genetic particles and recycles it into a usable substance.
I'm going to move forward here because I want to, on the second page, 167, at the top it says harmony. Is it underlined? Harmony is the stance or the force we can define geometrically. Again, last week we talked about liberal arts and sciences, arithmetic, number, geometry, astronomy, music, or harmony. We talked about how to study the liberal arts and sciences, that one then was able to intellectually understand the operation of cosmic law. But only through the condition of the virtue would one develop the wisdom to use that knowledge correctly.
or then to use that knowledge in a harmonious fashion as opposed to a disharmonious fashion. And so if you then go back into the Western civilization, because of their lack of virtue and ethics in the moral side of the heart, they then use this information in a disharmonious or destructive manner. So it says, yet we cannot understand the reason for its logical existence. I say geometrically in the mathematical acceptation, through our senses are capable of selecting what is harmonious or disharmonious. This is key. Through our senses, we are capable of selecting what is harmonious or disharmonious. Which means we have an instinctual capacity to understand what is the right or incorrect way of doing something. But if our conscious mind then shuts down our natural instincts and starts to override our natural feeling nature, again, the feeling related to the feminine side, the mother, the feminine, the heart, what you feel. See, all those symbolism are pointing you into the way of salvation. But then if we let the rational mind, the intellect, override what we really feel is being correct, then we get out of sync. We get into dissonance and create some negative effects. That's why they want to drug us up. Piece of TV. Because they keep you in a state of dissonance. It says, through the ear, the most purely direct sense, through the eye, which demands mental judgment, also through the sense of smell and through the taste, combined with smell, that we have the capacity to select what is harmonious and disharmonious. It's interesting is that those places of endocrine glands and of seeing and hearing, and also the intellect, have the highest concentration of melanin. And melanin has the capacity to absorb energy and convert that energy into usable formats. And then to convert that energy into, because it absorbs light, and light contains intelligence. And also radiation. See, if you understand that we are constantly, as I was talking about before, we had the symbolism of a human being on the face of the earth. It's like we're like a gyroscope, which means through our senses, we are in alignment with the universe. And as the universe shifts, that shifting is registered within our own instinctual nature. So that if we would be trained to be able to go within and listen to our own inner mind, we would then be naturally responding to the harmonic relationship to the greater order of things. And we would know.
Would that mean we'd be vibrating?
We are vibrating.
Well, what I mean on a greater level, a higher level.
Well, yeah, if your material has been refined to where it can vibrate, again, remember, like on a drum, the tighter the drum is, the higher the level of frequency. So then, if you then are living remember we talked about how the virtues were the virility and the valor of the soul, that they then elevate your energy level and your ability to respond at higher levels of frequency. That's why diet and exercise and mental attitude carry frequency. So then if you're constantly loading your system down with lower levels of frequency, it neutralizes your capacity to register higher levels of frequency. So I'm saying that you're always vibrating, so that depending upon your lifestyle will determine the sensitivity of the system to be able to register these higher levels of frequency.
Say that you know about, say something is negative that's around you, everything around you is negative. Say I went and took the Rivian today. I know how to discriminate what I want to come in. So it's okay in a sense, once you're aware of something, to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to look at this, but now they can't do this to me.
Because you'll take
You have the power now to...
That's right. to discriminate,
To discriminate.
and absorb what is
Absorb what-
benefit and to pass on what is not.
Yeah.
That's why once you teach people to know, you don't have to worry about them. Because they'll know for themselves, as opposed to trying to, that's why they say that there should be no intermediary between you and God. When the Europeans came in and brought in an intermediary, said you had to go through the Pope or through the priest or through the whoever to make judgment on how your appropriate behavior is.
Yeah.
They had to tell you if you was acting right or wrong, as opposed to developing that insight within your own self. But that set up the mechanism for you also to have to depend upon other father figures to tell you if you are in order or not in order.
So my natural instinct for myself is that I basically stay single, not because I feel that's where I want to be, it's because I know at some point everybody's always trying to tell you, like, why should I go to a priest? He's just a man. I mean, forget this Christian stuff, and I get bombarded with, comments, well, what do you mean? But all these people within the system well, let me jump back to what I'm trying to say. Like for our people right now out there, I had an argument yesterday with the architect. I mean, we can hear bad things, but for some reason, we have not picked up on or have showed our people that architect has a lot to do with their behavior. I mean, take Chicago, that building where all those kids are living with bars and stuff on their windows. I mean, that is a visual disaster right there. So, I mean, how am I going to get out there and tell them this is destructive right there? Just a visual effect. We can hear when things are bad. I mean, if you sing a bad note, you know it's a bad note. But these kids are living.
They know it's bad. You ain't gotta tell them it's bad. They know it's bad.
How do we get them out of this kind of situation? Because that architect is very important.
Well, then you have to deal with we have to retake over control of our own community. That's what has to happen. We have to start creating the world that's in our own best interest. Our major focus, because two objects cannot occupy the same place and same time. So we spend a lot of time focusing on the negative as opposed to us focusing on creating the world that we want to live in. And the question is, are we clear on what that is? Because if we were clear on what that is, then we could spend our time developing it. So the issue is you have to develop knowledgeable individuals that really understand these principles and understand it. But you also have to develop people that have virtuous character, because a lot of people have good ideas, but the emotional body is the underminer. And then if you get into this piece, it's going to start talking about the astral plane. Now the astral plane is related to the emotional plane. The astral plane is that connecting link that connects everything together. That emotional body also is again the feelings. And so the feelings directly created or directly influences where your wisdom comes from. So then because our emotional bodies are so abused and frustrated and anxiety driven, as we start moving into a position of leadership and power, those weaknesses within the emotional body become empowered, and that becomes our undermining. And so the question is how to develop character in people. To develop character in people, you have to develop mothering. When I say mothering, it's not just women. It's the practice of mothering, not female, which is nurturing. So then you're saying that human beings are not being provided proper nurturement. So if you talk about these kids and these projects, then how are you then? You have to develop the capacity to nurture them with positive experiences. Because experience itself. So then you have to look at and then what is it? You have to have a force equal to or greater than on the physical world. So as an individual, how do you develop force that's equal to or greater than in the force that's keeping this particular building or group or whatever in a negative. So then this is where you're knowing. You can go within your own intelligence and focus in on the question.